stance, and pow.
And a lot of people don't know how long Hogan was, the speed he had in his swing, which I listened to Paul Runyon, for one, who I knew pretty well, but they had done tests on speed, and Hogan was like ridiculously fast, close to 130 miles an hour is what Mr. Runyon told me.
That's legend Jim McLean talking about how fast Ben Hogan was swinging the golf club. Super duper cool. This is an excerpt from my show, Mr. Hogan, that I did with Jim McLean. This is some stuff you've never ever seen before. I'm so proud to share it with you guys. So Jim got to see Hogan a lot. He followed him many times, probably about 7 or 8 times, watched him play with his buddy John Mahaffey. And I owe Jim so much. He got me connected with the folks at Champions, and I just couldn't thank him enough. He's a true gentleman. I absolutely think Jim McLean is one of the greatest legends in the game of golf. Now, I want to share this video with you, and we're going to get into the conversation about Ben Hogan, the qualities of his swing, and what made him so special. Now, one of the things I think is really exciting is Jim and I did talk about the over-the-top move that folks like Bruce Litsky had.
If you watch his swing face on, it looks perfect. I mean, it's just magnificent. When you watch it down the target line, you can see the more of this.
So that's a part of this full episode. Okay, it's not available anywhere right now, but it probably will be pretty soon. I'm working on some cool stuff. And if you'd like to learn the over-the-top miracle swing, I highly recommend you go to miracleswingexperience.com. This video is changing people's lives all around the world.
It feels like you can't miss.
I hit over 200 balls, 0 slice.
Pretty.
Yeah, like I'm trying to mess one up on purpose and I can't.
I am a miracle swing. And thank you so much.
So without further ado, let's dig into Jim McLean's episode of Mr. Hogan.
You didn't get too close to Hogan. I didn't, move right up on top of him, but I certainly watched him hit the balls at Champions. It had a great sound, and it was spectacular. It was great to watch him hit it. The beauty of his swing, the power of the swing, and the accuracy that he hit the ball came out like a rocket with just the tiniest bit of drop off.
Ben Hogan would have putted well. He would have shot in the mid-50s every day.
He was hitting drivers. I've never seen anyone to this day and hit them the same distance, the same direction.
His concept was to throw the right knee at the ball.
People say Hogan won't ever talk to you. Well, Hogan talked to me a lot.
Hogan was the best striker from tee to green that ever lived, without a question.
I'll tell you what, he really was good at dancing.
I go back a long way with Hogan. Great admiration for him as a golfer and to me as a person.
Ben Hogan had a tremendous impact on everyone who watched him play the game. Please enjoy this episode of Mr. Hogan, starring Jim McLean.
I'm Gary Player, and you're watching MSE TV.
Jim McLean is one of the most important figures in the world of golf. In addition to being the creator of the X Factor, Jim is the CEO of the Jim McLean Golf School brand, the #1 golf school in the world. Jim's resume is almost too long to list, so I'd simply like to invite you to enjoy this episode of Mr. Hogan, starring Jim McLean. After meeting Jim at the PGA show in Orlando, he invited me down to Miami to spend an entire day with him at his Jim McLean Golf School World Headquarters at the Biltmore Resort in Coral Gables, Florida.
Well, this is I call them the super stations.
The super station, I've seen it in pictures and in video, but this is incredible to see the actual location. I'm tempted to say that this swing is as good as Ben Hogan's. Like, it's that outstanding.
Watching Sam play was unbelievable, and again, all you have to do is talk to people that were from that era or after, guys that played with Sam when he was in his late 60s, early 70s. It was still phenomenal.
I heard a rumor that Hogan said that if he could have clubbed Sam, he would have won even more.
Well, they had a big rivalry, that's for sure. In 1950, Sam won 10 tournaments and Hogan won 1, and Hogan was the Player of the Year, which always bothered him.
Oh, that's to rub him the wrong way, I
Yeah.
bet.
Then, when, you and I have talked a lot about Hogan, and watching Hogan swing a club, I think, has been one of the swings that's been copied the most, and trying to get that kind of freedom into the swing, that kind of power into the swing. Sam Snead, of course, people are going to talk about forever. That swing's always going to be good. If you brought Sam into this time frame, he would kill it. He'd be super long, and he hit it straight too. I mean, he'd be great.
Did you have the opportunity to meet or watch Ben Hogan?
I did at Champions. I was at the University of Houston, and he would come down to see his friends, Jimmy DeMeritt, who was his best friend, and Jackie Burke. He would stay at Champions for a week, most years, every year, I think, for a long time. And they put him up right there at Champions. And then he would play with Jackie and his brother Jimmy Burke, and then Jay Abear was there, and John Mahaffey, who I'd lived with when he was a senior. I was a sophomore, and after that he worked at Champions for 1 year, and Hogan helped him. And I watched John play with Hogan a few times. So I watched Hogan play 7 or 8 times, or 18 holes, walk around with him, and then we saw him at the Houston Open. He played well 1 year when he was quite a bit older, and then the last tour event he ever played was at Champions, where he hit it in the rank on number 4 at Champions and hurt his leg, and he got around through 10, and then he withdrew, and that's the last time he ever played.
What stands out to you?
Well, I got to watch Hogan practice. I got to watch him play with Mahaffey when John was the NCAA champion the year before, first team All-American, and went on to have a great career on the PGA Tour. So John could really play. And Hogan was 57, 58 years old at this time, and Hogan hit it past him. And a lot of people don't know how long Hogan was, the speed he had in his swing, which I listened to Paul Runyon, for one, who I knew pretty well. Runyon came up to Seattle to open up Sahalee. He was the director of golf at Sahalee. So I took lessons from Paul and got to know him, and then I'd see him in California as well. But they'd done tests on speed, and Hogan was like ridiculously fast, close to 130 miles an hour is what Mr. Runyon told me, on the machines of Spalding. So he and Sam Snead were the longest hitters of their generation. Plus, Hogan, of course, had that incredible control of the golf ball. And I know you've talked to a lot of great champions that got to see Hogan play or played with him, where you'd have these massive strings in tournaments of not missing a fairway, not missing a green. And those are legendary stories, but they happened.
I mean, I couldn't believe it, that something like this can happen. I hit over 200 balls, 0 slice. In and up, that's it. Repeatable. I am a miracle swinger. And thank you so much.
You owe it to yourself to give this a try. I guarantee it's the best way to hit a golf ball.